All right, good evening. It's Ryan Wood, episode number 1 of World Softball TV. Very excited to bring this new show to Amateur Sports TV here. And we can't have World Softball TV without an old great friend of mine who's in charge of the sport of softball here in Canada, Mike Branchaud. Mike, thanks for being a part of episode number 1 of
No
World
problem.
Softball TV.
No problem. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for calling me old.
Takes takes us back to the old days and when I used to have the online radio show. I don't know if you remember those days of Northern Softball Radio, but you were a
I
guest
do.
for me back in those days too.
I do. I didn't get to see your pretty face back then. It was all radio and it was all internet. So that was a little while ago too, Ryan.
To imagine technology that presents to ourselves 10 years later.
Absolutely.
Well, at the helm of Softball Canada. Now, tell everybody watching at home, what is the exact title that you hold for Softball Canada?
Yeah. So I'm basically manager of Canadian Championships in the men's national team program. So a couple of different hats. Those are the two focus points for me. I also take care of like technical standards, college initiatives. There's a list of things that fall under my portfolio as well. So it's quite busy, and obviously I've been with it since 2007, softball side of things here with Softball Canada. So I really enjoy it, and obviously we're doing something right now that we haven't done before, trying to figure things out, and it's good. Keeps me busy. That's for sure.
Well, now, in a lot of different governing bodies in various different sports, both sides of the border, Canada and the U.S., a lot of times, a lot of the people that are in charge of some of the sports maybe not have a playing expertise background. You're not one of those types of people. You've actually been a player at the softball level on both sides of the border. You want to touch on kind of your experiences as a player before you took on the
Sure.
role of Softball Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. I started out back in minor softball in Cornwall, Ontario. Playing there throughout the good old Pee Wee and Bantam back then, as it was called, and then I jumped to both men's league and junior side. And back then, junior was under 19, which is now it's under 23 pretty much. But I played out of the Ottawa area for many years with the junior program called Stittsville 56ers. And at that time, that's whenever we competed in the Ontario Championships and the different provincial avenues, I guess you could call them, depending on your population and things like that, which way you went after the eliminations. And I went to school in the University of Ottawa and kind of stayed there throughout the summer and played in several different leagues and across the border to play tournaments and things like that as well. And then I was lucky enough after university, I hooked up with a four-man softball show called The King and His Court. So I did that from pretty much 93 to 98, toured all of the U.S. and Canada, and it was basically my job for the 5-year period there. And then I got, I continued to play at a high level. I went to a team called the New York Spirit in the ISC side of things, the International Softball Congress. They were just out of Albany, New York, and we hit 2 of the Club Team World Championships, which is the ISCs as they're called. So we had some success there, and back then, most of the events were, I think the first time I went into the Worlds, I think we had 32 teams maybe, so it was pretty big. And then after that, I kind of hooked up on the hockey side of things with work with Carha, or Canadian Old Timers Hockey back then, as it was called as well. And after spending some time in Sport Canada building, got to know a lot of great contacts, and was approached by Softball Canada to see if I would take over the Canadian Championship side of things back in 07. And I've been there ever since. Loved the Canadian Championships. side of my job, and then obviously the men's national team program, which includes the border battle team. That kind of took off, and then probably 10 times South America, New Zealand a couple of times. We're actually supposed to be in New Zealand right now for the men's World Cup, but obviously that didn't happen, so it's pushed to the year. So we're hoping to get there in 2022. So it's been great. Softball's been very good to me, both work wise and also playing career wise. So it's great to still be around it. Both my boys play. My one son was part of the U18 Canadian national team that went to New Zealand last year and competed in the World Cup there. So my other one is, he's working at it. He's 15, so he's played in some good provincials, and we'll see what next step brings him as well. So it's been a great game for me.
Now, I mean, you talked about supposed to be in New Zealand at this stage. Clearly, the world that we live in is a little different than what we're all accustomed to, especially in the sports world. What's going on with COVID and Softball Canada at this stage? What are things that you're hoping to accomplish this summer? And maybe have you come up with any modified plans so that maybe Canadian Championships can still be something that can happen this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing right now is we're basically still 5+ months, 5.5 months away from the start of any of our Canadian Championships, and as we know, a lot of things change, and they change pretty quickly at times. So we're hoping that we get somewhat of a normal Canadian Championship, and I do mean we understand there's going to be some I guess protocols that have to be followed, and the tough part is the planning side of things for teams. It's quite an expense to get to some of the Canadian Championships, and so we're cognizant of that. We're hoping to have some type of a decision on Canadians probably sometime in late April, early May, whether or not they're going to be as we know them, or if we can't do that, we're going to definitely look at some other options. Could be regional events. So, for instance, Atlantic Canada, right? If people have to, if they can't get out of Atlantic Canada without coming back and having to 14-day isolate, that could be a problem for them to come to any Canadian. So maybe what we do is we have a regional championship in Atlantic Canada for different championships. We're looking at possible hub cities or bubbles, as they're called, I guess, from other sports. But we're hoping that we can have some normalcy and bring these championships. All the hosts are keen to move forward. So it's just a matter of hurry up and wait and see. But we're hoping.
In terms of COVID and how it kind of wreaked havoc on most of softball, at least across Canada. I know me being in Ontario and you as well. I mean, fortunately, we got to play like little mini leagues, but do you feel like the mini leagues gave enough service for the development for some of the younger players that are maybe missing out on some of those prime development years? How are you finding being able to identify players for some of the national teams at the softball level for some of the youth? And I mean, obviously Canada can't cross the border, so I mean the border battle stuff is clearly not happening. But it seems to me that slow pitch and softball in general is still happening down in the U.S. Would Softball Canada look at allowing a Canadian team to go down and compete if ASA, the partner, would want to put something like that together?
Again, we're keeping our doors open. We're in constant contact with the USA Softball. The plan right now is a September date of a border battle in Oklahoma City. But again, it's one of those ones where you can plan all you want, but if you can't get across the border in the sense of that 14-day or even now the $2,000 quarantine in the hotel whenever you come back. We don't expect our players to to take the time off of work and then come back and it's another up to 14 days again. So we're hoping that things change in the sense of rapid testing. Maybe there's some leniency if you're going to represent your country and you follow certain protocols. I don't know. I know our women's team is still trying to prepare for the Olympic Games this coming summer, and it's going to be difficult on them. They're falling behind the eight ball in the sense of not being able to get together as a team and play some meaningful competition. They're working at it. I mean, they get together whenever they can, and it's in groups and stuff. But again, it's not their typical training that that they would like to see for the Olympic Games, obviously. So who knows? Same thing with our men's national team. Other countries are playing. Other countries are training together. We're hoping to have we had a camp planned in April for our fast pitch team, but hasn't been canceled yet. But we're still, looking at options. We're hoping to get them together and then have them play in different events throughout Canada if possible, because they have a qualifier in November, and then, like I mentioned, the World Cup in next February.
Now, talk about, Canada women's softball going back into the Olympics. This is the first time since, now, is it Atlanta that there's been women's softball? When was women's softball before that?
Yeah, now you're testing me.
Yeah. I should know this. I'm the interviewer, right? I should have those dates, right? So I can make you look good. But clearly, my homework's not done.
Yeah, it wasn't the last one. It was Olympic Games before that, and it was in was it?
Well, let's see. Atlanta was what, 96?
96, yeah.
So 2000?
First one. No, it was even after that. They were in. Oh man, good question. But we didn't have any callers that could call in and fix this.
Well, if it was the radio show back in the day, we could have got callers to call in, but unfortunately, right. I can't have a phone a friend option on this. Right. But maybe it's something that I can talk to the tech department about in the future and see if we can make that happen, so that if we do get stumped, we can fix it. But I'm gonna have to look that one up here, and we'll figure that one out. But I think it's great that women's softball is back in the Olympics. How is that relationship with World Baseball and Softball Congress, if I'm not mistaken? Did I say that right? WBSC.
WBSC, yeah, World Baseball.
How is that relationship cemented women's softball to be allowed to be, well, not allowed, but helped get women's softball back into the Olympics? Would you say that relationship has really helped it?
Absolutely. Back in whenever it was the International Softball Federation, the ISF, Don Porter was a huge advocate. He was basically in charge of of everything for international softball for many years, and that was one of his goals, was to get it back in the Olympics. And one of the things that they did was partner at the time with baseball, and then that's how the WBSC came about. So they figured the strength in numbers basically to get women's softball, men's baseball back in the Olympics was the way to go, and also to grow the sport in different federations across the world. So the relationship's strong. They're really modernizing things, I guess you could say. The WBSC is. They've changed the structure of World Championships, now called World Cups. Qualification process is all different, and then they have this new version, called Baseball 5, which I don't know a heck of a lot about, other than it's one of the things WBSC is pushing now, and a lot of the countries are getting involved. It's a shorter, quicker version. You can play it indoors, so it's going to be interesting. But they do a great job with the World cups. A lot of stipulations are put on hosts. The venues now are outstanding. Everything the umpire is, certain standards are met for the umpire. So the umpiring over the course of the last, 5 years has gotten a lot better. So yes, they've done a lot of great things and will continue to improve, softball and baseball for that matter, across the world.
Now, in terms of the political aspect, I mean, the ISF was around for a long time. I mean, I'm 37 years old now, and I was lucky 20 years ago to be able to play for Softball Canada in Australia and on the junior national team, and that was ISF back then. Did they go kicking and screaming a little bit, or did they feel like this was a great thing for the game? How did the transition come about? And you know, uh, I guess from a political standpoint, where was Softball Canada as this was kind of happening?
Yeah, I mean, it was good in the sense of the ISF were one of the leaders in making this work with baseball, and Don Porter actually took on a role with the WBSE for a few years, and then we also had some new presidents that kind of went in and with the WBSC and in the transition period. But Softball Canada were a strong body within the WBSC in the sense of we send teams were well represented across the men's and the women's side of things. Other countries are strong in one area, men's or women's, but USA, Canada, New Zealand, or Australia even, they're traditionally sending men's, junior women. So, we have people that are on the WBSC committees, everything from umpires to technical side of things. So we're well represented. Communication is different in a sense because they're in Switzerland. So sometimes there's a time lapse, but they get us the information. We're waiting for some information now on WBSC cycles, as they're called, for championships because of the pandemic and cancellations and the Olympic Games and things like that. So we're waiting on that from them. But they were supposed to have their Congress themselves in November, but that was done virtually, so it was a little bit different as well. So no, it's a strong relationship. We're happy with the work that they're doing. And like I said, there's a lot of great people in that, and the events are outstanding.
In terms of
checked Woody in 2008, it was in Beijing.
Beijing, okay, so that was the last time.
Yeah.
And then it took 2 years off, or sorry, two cycles of Olympics off, and then it was coming back for after a 2 Olympic break.
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for doing your research and making yourself useful. In terms of organizational structure of Softball Canada, president newly appointed not too terribly long ago, correct?
Actually, he's in his 14th month now, 15th month. Yeah, so he's got part of his 2-year term, so he's a little over halfway through it. But yeah, and then we have a board of directors that let's see, we have 3 new directors from our November AGM.
Okay.
So there's the president and the board, and then our office staff, as well as our 2 national team head coaches and different staff members, on those teams as well.
Now, in terms of softball in Canada, I mean, it's been primarily a fast pitch kind of organization. Now, clearly at the elite level for slow pitch, you've run Canadian championships. You have your provincial governing bodies who run slow pitch in different provinces. I think Ontario is probably the biggest of all of that are kind of under the Softball Canada umbrella. Where would you say the next province in terms of size for membership when it comes to the sport of slow pitch within Canada next to Ontario? Where would you rank the provinces at the slow pitch level when it comes to registrations?
Yeah, so I can only speak for like our provincial association. So maybe SPN or NSA or the other organizations may have a greater presence, but I'm not sure in terms of numbers. But with Softball Canada, next one is Alberta.
Okay.
They seem to have the highest registrations besides Ontario. Now, some of the provinces have a working agreement with the SPNs. Over the past, especially like Yukon, for instance, they work with SPN, but they also have the partnership with Softball Yukon. And then even in Atlantic Canada, I know there's some strong presence between the provincial body and SPN. They kind of work together to make things, I guess, accessible would be a good word for the player. But in true SPO is the number one association for slow pitch across Canada for Softball Canada.
Now, out of curiosity, I've always wondered this. I mean, I've been in this business of softball now for, I don't know, a long time, I guess, 20 years. Um, why is it that Softball Canada has never really focused on making the sport of slow pitch kind of bigger in each province and having a better presence when it comes to that particular sport and focus on that adult recreational side of things? What is it, just always left up to the governing bodies in the specific areas, or just not
Yeah.
something that's really in the plan?
There's always discussions about it. Like we actually tried to do a series of lower. Actually, lower is not a good word, but of more of the co-ed recreational side of things. For everything from like even restaurants or businesses and approaching them and trying to get them playing the game anyways and getting them members of the provincial associations. And we also talked about having 3 or 4 regional events as well, and building a series. But honestly, the challenge that each provincial body has is the membership numbers of the recreational player in the other organizations. As it's one of those businesses for the other bodies, in the sense that that's their moneymaker, right?
Yeah.
That's how they stay afloat, I guess you can say. Some of them have great tournaments, great programs. There's lots of prizing out there, as you know, and sometimes it just doesn't fit with what the province is selling, I guess you could say. Like even our Canadian championships are across the board from 14, 16, 19, 23, and men's and women's on the fast pitch side. Those are 90% A teams that attend the Canadian championships. So the provinces figure out who's going and how they get to play in the Canadians. So it's the same thing for slow pitch, in the sense that there could be an opportunity for a lower caliber team to have a great provincial or whatever it is. And I'm not saying in Ontario, but could be anywhere. Like I remember a team from Yukon came to Ontario a couple of years ago and played. But I mean, by no means were they even close to being an A team. So Canadian Championships are open to anybody, and we've never had a team in my tenure from PEI attend the slow pitch Canadians, but I'm hearing there possibly could be one down the road. I'm saying on the men's side, anyways. We did have a female team participate whenever it was in New Brunswick. Newfoundland has came with a men's team, but no female team in the past. So there's opportunities there. I personally would still like to try and do a co-ed event, and put some guidelines in there where maybe you're restricted the amount of A players or it's a ranking system. I don't know the ins and the outs, but I would still like to get some type of co-ed event down the road that's not running the same time as the men's and the women's.
I just remember back in the day, it used to be a week of co-ed and then a week of men's and ladies. It was back to back, and people that played the sport would need 2 weeks holidays
Yeah,
to go on a 2 week vacation to play 20 somewhat games over 14 days. It can
yeah,
only imagine. I'll never forget 1998. Prince Albert, Saskatchewan was the men's and ladies. I remember them saying that co-ed was in a specifically different location across the country, and they're getting on planes to get to. It was, back in those days. That's what they did. I was in PA for Prince Albert Raider tryouts, and the Dana Dirks was there, and I think it was the henchman against Quebec in the finals. And if I'm not mistaken, um, the henchman got double dipped by Quebec, if I'm not mistaken, in the finals. So that's a long time ago. I think I was like a
yep,
16-year-old kid back then. But yeah, that was my first experience of seeing actually high level competitive slow pitch, and I was hooked. I loved every minute of it. The competition
yep,
is great, and the caliber of ball here in Canada. I mean, you're seeing more and more top quality players being cherry picked to go across the border to be playing at the elite levels down there. I mean, our highest level here in Canada. I mean, if you're playing on your club teams, would you say is a fair statement that the top teams here in Canada would be at a B level down in the U.S.? Would that be a fair statement?
by no means am I an expert of the ball over there, because really the only slow pitch softball I've watched in the U.S. is one with our border battle team playing Team USA. So
Right.
it's hard for me to say what it would be, but I can tell you this is the pool of players down there that they have is second to none. It's so big compared to what we have at that top level. So I don't know. I mean, it's we have some great players, like you mentioned. Some guys have a lot of success whenever they go down play in the U.S., but they just have a wider range, and their their year-round ability to play that game compared to our February coldness here right now is
Yeah.
different. So it's hard for me to say if it's comparable, but yeah, for sure, I would say it's different A ball, put it that way.
So now Border Battle started 2009. Um, Jeff Sagan is one of the original coaches with
Okay.
Jeff Long,
Yep.
and Neil Teague was involved. Were you in the meetings and how that kind of started? I mean, there's a lot of rumors and talks as to kind of how this whole border battle thing actually got going. Why don't you kind of deep
Yeah.
into it a little bit as to kind of how it all transpired?
Sure. So back then, it was still ASA softball at the time, and we have a great working relationship with ASA softball on the fast pitch side of things, and we share a lot of information with them, and they're basically our U.S. counterparts. So I still remember I got the phone call um, from Craig Kress, who's now their what is he, their CEO, I believe now.
Yeah,
And
yeah, he just got that promotion, if I'm not mistaken.
a few years back, yeah.
Yeah.
And he, so he had explained to me this great plan that they had, and at the time there was a women's fast pitch event that was drawing like 6,000-7,000 people. They were packing Oklahoma, the stadium there, and they want to grow the game of slow pitch and give something back to their players on that were part of the ASA, because they were in. I think they were also. I mean, they had some competition with other organizations in the U.S. as well, and this is one thing that they could use to grow their game. So that's how it kind of started. And they asked us if Canada would send a team, and we looked at some different ideas of what we could do, and the game being on ESPN and TSN, and those first few years, the team was treated like like kings. Like, it was great for a lot of guys. It was like an eye opener, like walking into the stadium and seeing a women's fast pitch, between USA and Japan, and like the crowd chanting and the banners, and the free giveaways as you're walking in. It's like a major league, a little mini major league park. So it kind of built from there. But we were always it was always their event. Like, it's still, at the time, was the ASA border battle, and we were the invited guest, and we kind of built a partnership. We did one year try to bring a team from Europe, which we did, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out for more European teams to come down. But we're still talking, trying to figure out if we actually have a tournament, and make it some type of an event to get to the border battle championship game. But who knows? They've got the USA Futures now. We built in the women's program, and our women's team, they won that first ever border battle game back a few years ago, and it's kind of grown since then. Unfortunately, last year, as everything else was pushed aside, this great event was as well. We're hoping we can get there in September.
In terms of all the border battles that have happened, I mean, there's been some great moments. There's been some duds where we just got caught off on a bad night, and the U.S. gave us a bit of a beating, and it's kind of expected to a certain extent, I guess, because us Canadians, we have a huge sense of pride in what we try to do, and we want to step on the field when we play that game. But there's always that little bit in the back of your mind knowing that you're playing against the bat manufacturer's #1 draft picks, and being able to put names on bats. And I know that there was some politics after year one, if I'm not mistaken, just about the competition basically saying that some of the best players from the States weren't allowed to play in the game. What are your thoughts on that kind of situation and scenario? And do you feel like not allowing the best players around to not be available, no matter who their sanctionings belong to, do you think that that's right? And should they still want to be able to represent? Like, should you think that they should be available at any given time to represent their country?
I mean, there's different ways that I can answer this. I think no matter what, you still have to want to wear the maple leaf, or in their part in the States want to wear the USA. We've run into that problem with with some of our fast pitch teams, where with these club teams, in the sense of where they play every day, or for their summers. There's quite good sponsorships there for some of the fast pitch teams, and we've had some situations where certain players weren't allowed to go play with national team events or teams for a given period of time. Obviously, some of the best pitchers in the world, have been from Canada in the past 30 years, and so there's always that potential of some club teams saying, no, we're not going to release you to go. We don't want you to go. Same thing happens in hockey, as you know. But with the border battle in the U.S., I think it's so close in some of these guys that, it's one of these things like in Canada where maybe your A team is not really your A team, in the sense of you switch it around with 3 or 4 guys, and you still got a great team. So they're still very good, no matter they could pick 30 players and they're still tough. I mean, their USA Futures team has beat their Team USA, I think, 2 of the 3 times that I've watched them play. So I mean, you can take it for what you want, but the guy doesn't want to be there, and he's chosen to play with a certain team, and I'm sure he's getting compensated quite well, and it is what it is. And no matter what, we're going to go out, we're going to play our guys and that want to be there, and hopefully come out with a victory. But it doesn't really matter, I think, to our guys whether somebody says, well, yeah, but these 3 or 4 players weren't there. I mean, it's a great memory. I still see that highlight of Cadenhead running in and a big bear hug on the first time we ever won the border battle. So it's still quite an accomplishment no matter what you do, and whenever you win with the maple leaf across your chest, it still means something.
Well, it was a pretty surreal moment, and that whole entire day, just leading up into the game, it was between having Mario Huard with his speech, Toddy talking, it just was. Everybody was pulling the rope the same direction. It was a pretty cool experience, and I'm pretty thankful that I got to be a part of that. And I mean, Canada's only won it twice out of all the years. I mean, there's been a few close games, but the 2 wins have been great. But yeah, I mean, the talent level that Canada has. If they show up to play, and a lot of these Canadian teams, if they get off to a good start, it usually makes for a pretty good game. But you can see if the Canadian guys don't get off to that good start, you're behind the 8 ball, and against a team like Team USA, you just can't play catch up for 7 innings, because the game will be over in 4 before you know it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen some of their big innings where it's like, oh my God, are we ever going to get out of here? Like, it's just one thing after another. And as you mentioned, like, we have such great talent here, and I still, being on the bench and just kind of listening and learning the game, because I was new to the game of slow pitch at the A level. Whenever I first came into with Softball Canada, my first venture at the A level, top level, was in Windsor. I think it was 07 or 08 or whatever it was. And anyway, so just being on the bench of the border battle and kind of listening to the guys and just remembering how the infielders were talking and saying, like, the balls are they're just hit harder. They just move quicker, so you have less reaction time, and I mean, it is what it is. Most of these U.S. guys just do this for a living, as we know. So whenever our best are saying, like, this is tough, you got to respect both the competitor and our guys.
You ever see? I mean, I know that the women's fast pitch has got a pro league. I know our Canadian national team gets welcomed by where are they in Illinois?
Yep.
Yeah, so just outside of St. Louis.
Yeah, somewhere the southern Illinois, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, they go down, they play in the ladies pro league to prepare them for the Olympics and get to play against all the top, women's players in the U.S. I think that league gives them a great gives them the opportunity to prepare so well to play in all those elite level competitions. And if I'm not mistaken, Australia's got a team in there as well. So I mean, you could see that people want to go to the U.S. to get to play the competition. And I mean, the sport of softball is just so ginormous down in the U.S. Just out of pure numbers, and just it's warm there. I mean, California and Arizona and all those states that get to play 12 months a year. All you're going to do is get better, and it's no different than us in hockey up here. I mean, it's cold, so we produce hockey players because, well, we seem to have ice 7-8 months a year. So. And then all the indoor rink options. I mean, you just keep going and going and going. But I mean, do you ever see a legitimate pro slow pitch league ever being something that could take off? Do you see that viewership could be there? Do you think sponsorship, whether it comes to bat manufacturers and just all the people that are really involved in the sport at that level, do you think that they would want to get behind a men's pro slow pitch league?
Um, why not? Is my response back. I mean, it's like everything else. You know, you got to get the backers, you got to get the person that's going to organize it, you got to get the teams, you got to get everything. But I mean, anything's possible. Um, I mean, it's one of those things where would it be better off being a cross border league in the sense of us saying, okay, you know what, we're just going to have 3 or 4 teams in Canada, we're going to play down here, and then we're going to head over, in the off months or in the early spring or early fall and play over there, and then a Canadian champion versus the U.S. champion. Who knows? I mean, there's no plans right now in that for Softball Canada, but would it be great for the sport? Oh, absolutely.
If
Absolutely be
if
great.
Softball Canada became, a Lotto 649 winner, perhaps the sport of slow pitch could have a pro league for sure. But no, that's awesome. And I guess just kind of getting into the final stages here of episode one, and again, I couldn't ask for a better guest and somebody who is passionate about the sport of softball, like yourself, Mike. But in terms of plans, I mean, we talked about COVID and plans there. Talked about what the Canadian Championships are looking like. Let's talk about like the host committees for some of these Canadian Championships. I mean, I've seen the package for applications to become a host committee. I mean, there's a lot of financial risks involved in becoming a host committee. I mean, how is it that some of these host committees are able to piece together such a great event on such shoestring budgets sometimes?
Um, you know what? Like one of the things that I did whenever I first came over, I started looking at how can we make sure that we have hosts for our Canadian Championships, because like you're saying, like it is sometimes a financial um, challenge, I guess you could say, for a lot of a lot of the hosts to do it. But I think over the course of the years, Woody, we put together a lot of great packages. In a sense, we have a pretty thorough host guide. We refer some of the hosts to past successful budgets and past budgets where quite maybe not quite as successful. They could have broke even, lost a little bit. And in my what is it now, 14 years of Canadian Championships, pretty much I work hand in hand with all the hosts and I try to ease them in the sense of like let's look at this or let's do that. But I think I've done an analysis of every year for like I kind of keep a 5-year average going on the Canadian Championship host profit loss, I guess you could say, and we're probably 95% of the Canadian Championships make money, which is quite high now. And I mean, there's been a couple where um, some of the teams, for instance, that want to host a Canadian Championship, they're looking at it as instead of spending $30K to go somewhere, they're playing at home, and they have a host committee that's not their players, but some people that are associated with their players. And you know what? If they break even, they're happy. Because they figure they saved 30,000 instead of going to a Canadian, across the country. So plus they get the advantage of playing at home. So there's some Canadian Championships that have done that in both slow pitch and fast pitch. We always have. There's about 3 Canadian Championship host committees that pretty much run a Canadian Championship every year in different age categories, and they basically know what to do and how to do it and how to make sure that they don't, lose any money. So I always make sure that if there's any questions, we always have our current host talk to, those hosts with experience just to get some things that some ideas and some ways to generate some funds. And there's also a lot of grants out there that people don't know about, whether they're provincial, they're local, but there is some opportunity there. And there's also a lot of cities that are looking for legacies to, like, whether it's like, for instance, light standards. All of a sudden now, you're looking at putting in lights. Well, if you're going to do that during a Canadian Championship, well, here's 50K to get you going. Like, you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
some opportunity there as well. So there's different ways of generating funds, and the days of on the fast pitch side, well, I'm relying on the gate for 70% of my revenue. That's not going to cut it.
Right.
Or same thing with slow pitch. If you're thinking that your bar is going to be your number one source of revenue, well, you know what? That's great, but what happens if it rains? What happens if it's washed out the last 3 days? You don't have that income. So, but like I said, we're pretty happy with about that 95% of the host making somewhat of a profit. And again, we're here to help. We got, like I said, that host guide, and we have different ideas, and we share a lot of information over the past successes. So, we're doing quite well with the host. We've had host in line for 2021 now for I think the last one went out maybe midsummer. So we're good for host for 21. We got about half of them. We still have to find hosts for in 2022, but I think part of that problem is obviously the state of where we are at as a society right now. So we're hoping that over the course of the next several months, we'll get those signed as well for 2022.
Now, I mean, obviously, I'm a slow pitch guy. Love the sport of fastball, but my area of passion is with slow pitch. And I know Canadians are supposed to be out in White Rock, BC. Great venue. Love the facility. It's Softball City. They've hosted so many amazing events over the years between fastball and slow pitch. With it being canceled last year, obviously they're going to get the push for this upcoming year. How does that host committee feel about still like being able to host it this year as opposed to losing out on a full year last year because of COVID? Like, what does it say about Softball Canada just being like, no, we're just going to push everything back a year? How did that determination come about?
Well, we canceled. I think it was sometime in late May. Where we finally pulled the plug. There were so many uncertainties, and we looked at different options, hoping that we could actually have championships. But pretty much like everybody else, we shut down. We shut down in late May. We did have some signed contracts for 2021 that, unfortunately, some of the events at the U14 girls, U16 girls, we couldn't just push them to 2021. But we did work with those groups to try and get them an event in 2022. But with slow pitch, we didn't have a host for 2021, so it was quite an easy, fix. We offered the spot with them, for 21, and they were all over it. They wanted to do it. They have a great host committee there as well. Very successful event called the Canada Cup. It's an annual fast pitch event for the girls and the women's. They've had an international side where they've had many countries come over, to play national teams. Our women's national team has played there for, pretty much every year that the international side of things has been gone. Most recently, they held the Olympic qualifier in 2019, I think it was, which our women's team qualified to go to the Olympics there. So they know what they're doing. They have great sponsors. They have a great volunteer base. So they took on the Canadian Slow Pitch Championships, knowing just the level of ball and also the amount of teams that would get there and play, and what it would do for not only Softball City, but their bar, their restaurant, the hotels in the area. you name it. So it was a no-brainer for them. They're happy to host. They're one of the ones that I'm constantly talking with. They're very close to developing a logo. We've seen some different options. So, they want to get going on things, but like everybody else, they're kind of, worried that we're not going to be able to do something. So, um, we're hoping, like you said, it's a great venue. It's a great spot. Um, so they're full speed. So
Equipment wise, is the men's and ladies Canadian Slovich Championships the only Canadian championships where Softball Canada has bats on the fence for the teams, or is
yes.
that done in any of the other?
No, it's just the slow pitch event.
Now talk about how that kind of came about. I mean, I know over the years there's been, some bad issues and people, using stuff that allegedly, there's never been confirmation. But as a player, when you hear a shotgun in the batter's box, it raises some eyebrows. But I think it's a great thing with the stock bats that get put on the fence. I know there was a lot of people, because I talked to them, that are happy with it. There's some that would like to use their own weapons of choice that they use all summer and then have to use something that's not their own equipment. But how do you feel the reception of it has been since it was implemented, if I'm not mistaken, 8 years ago?
Oh, must have been pretty close to that. Absolutely. Like, I think it's been one of the best things we've done for the sport of slow pitch. Like you said, it was several years there where we were fighting with lots of issues and lots of complaints and, potential for injury, you name it. And, even back then, bat testing well, let's just say it's not as thorough as it is now. And some of the machines that we were using to test bats were quite questionable. And, then the thing is, you hand the bat back to the guy, and next thing you know, it could go somewhere and get kind of broken in rather quick, or change, or the stickers all of a sudden are switched, and who knows what's going on. But we worked with Home Run Sports to make this happen. And originally, I was thinking, like, okay, here we go. We're going to have maybe half a dozen bats on the fence at each diamond or something. And whenever we first, I got the list, and it's like, holy jumping! Like, we're having 30 bats on each diamond. Like, it's just crazy. And put that dollar sign in your head, even if it's just $300 a bat. Like, that's a big investment. And so it's accomplished what we wanted it to accomplish. Those bats are tested 3-4 times a week. They're tested beforehand. They're stickered, they're numbered. So I think it's been very good for the sport, and we're hoping that we can continue to, do this for many years.
Now, when Home Run Sports puts the bats on the fence, as they're the ones in charge of bringing it, you guys have bat manufacturer deals through Softball Canada. Are you dictating any of the bats that are required to be on the fence based on the sponsorship businesses that you have with your bat manufacturers?
Yep, to a degree. I mean, we our partnerships with like the Rawlings, and Easton now is part of Rawlings, the Mizunos, and Louisville's, and the Marini, I guess, is the other big ones. But we've, like I said, we work with Home Run Sports. They have different avenues to get certain bats. I guess there's like other sports, like for hockey, Hockey Life gets a certain model. It's the same bat. And, Sport Check gets a different one, or whatever it is. So we understand that happens. Our biggest thing is we're trying to get weights with, to make sure it's fair for everybody. 26, 27, 28. We've had requests for up to 30. But unfortunately, we just we can't have every single model of every single bat out there. Um, our partnerships changed from a year to year basis with different manufacturers, I guess you can say, and but we still try to make sure that we have the end user in mind, which is the players, whenever we're putting the bats on the fence.
In a perfect world, I mean, you wouldn't have to do what you do. But again, I think it's cleaned up the actual integrity of the Canadian Slippage Championships, and you're starting to see the true home run hitters hit home runs with
Yep.
those stock bats, and that's what it should always be about. The cream will rise to the top when it comes to the hitting the home runs, and I think it's been a great addition to the Slopage Championships. Mike, I thank you very much for your time. I know that you're a busy guy. You got some boys in hockey, and you got emails and phone calls to field all day, every day, and to go on your personal time to film this first episode. It's great, and I've known you a long time, and I sent you one message, and you were happy to do it. So I appreciate that.
Hey, always great talking softball, no matter what time of the day, and hopefully we can do it at a diamond soon, which would be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get off this live over the phone, face to face teleconference stuff that our world is in. And if you were a betting man, Mike, would you say that you're going to get some Canadian Championships in this summer?
I am. I like my sports betting, that's for sure. But I do think so, and it's funny because we have this conversation. Me and our CEO and a couple other guys at work. We're always, more optimistic than pessimistic. And I've said from day one that we know more now than we did a year ago. We know what we're up against. And I think we can successfully run a Canadian safely. It's just the travel part is the unknown right now. That's the only thing that kind of scares me. But I think we will have some form of Canadian Championships. Who knows what they're going to look like, but I think we're gonna try and do our utmost to make it happen.
Olympics, is Canada going to win a medal?
Yes, they will.
Nice.
I think. Yeah, last year, I tell you, it's unfortunate because they worked so hard last year. The women's team owned the podium, was great supporters. With the Olympic athletes last year, our girls did everything right. They were peaking, and obviously, as Olympic athletes they're aiming towards one goal. And unfortunately, everything happened. I can tell you this: they are working their butts off. So.
Mark Smith's a slave driver, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Mark anytime in the next little while? You please let him know Ryan Wood says hello.
I will, for sure.
Right on. Well, it's Ryan Wood here with World Softball TV. Thanks again, Mike Branchaud with Softball Canada, episode 1 here on Amateur Sports TV. We'll be back here next week, and we'll see what kind of mystery guests I can spread out in my softball network.